The massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers slid shut with their usual softness. But something felt different today. Ambassador Park walked slowly to her designated seat, her black hair neatly pulled back, her face showing no emotion. Behind her, 11 other humans followed in complete silence. The other council members barely looked up from their data tablets and conversation clusters. For 200 years, humans had sat in these same chrome chairs. They had argued, pleaded, and reasoned with the alien species that controlled the galaxy. Today would be different. Today would be their last day. Chairman Vexthar, a tall creature with skin like blue crystal, called the session to order. His voice boomed across the circular chamber that could hold thousands of beings. Representatives from 47 different worlds settled into their seats. The humans sat perfectly still. First item of business, Vexthar announced, his crystal skin shifting colors as he spoke. The Terran limitation protocols have been approved by majority vote. Effective immediately, human expansion is restricted to Sol System and 3 designated colony worlds. The other species have been planning this for months. They whisper about in the corridors, met in private rooms, and passed coded messages. The humans were getting too bold. They said, too many questions about fairness. Too many demands for equal treatment. It was time to put them in their proper place. Ambassador Park stood up slowly. The chamber fell quiet, expecting the usual human response. Anger, protests, demands for reconsideration. Instead, she reached into her jacket and pulled out a simple white envelope. Chairman Vexthar, she said in a clear, steady voice, I hereby submit humanity's formal withdrawal from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. Counselor Zephyrian, a purple creature with long tentacles instead of arms, dropped her ceremonial staff. It clattered on the metal floor, the sound echoing in the vast chamber. Park placed the envelope on her desk and turned to leave. The other humans rose as one, their chairs scraping softly against the floor. No dramatic speeches, no threats of revenge, no demands for justice. They simply walked toward the exit in single file. Wait, called out Trade Minister Qualthon, his environmental suit making whirring sounds as he stood. You cannot simply leave. There are contracts, agreements, ongoing projects. Ambassador Park paused at the door, but did not turn around. All necessary documentation has been filed with Council archives. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. Then they were gone. Vexthar picked up the envelope with hands that shook slightly. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 3 sentences written in perfect Council standard language. The human delegation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council effective today. All ongoing commitments will be fulfilled according to existing contracts. We wish you success in your future endeavors. 47 words. No explanation. No list of grievances. No bitter accusations about unfair treatment. Just a polite goodbye. This is unprecedented, muttered Ambassador Tyann of the Celestial Dominion, her golden scales rippling with confusion. Species don't just leave the Council. Where will they go? What will they do? Defense Coordinator THY Cicera, a warrior race with 4 arms and red skin, laughed harshly. Good riddance. The humans were always trouble, always asking awkward questions, always suggesting changes to perfectly good systems that have worked for thousands of years. But some members looked worried. Dr. Kethmaran, the chief medical advisor, studied her data tablet with growing concern. The humans manage 17 critical infrastructure projects across 9 sectors. Who will take over their responsibilities? We managed fine before they arrived, Vexthar declared, though his crystal skin had turned a murky gray color that indicated uncertainty. We will manage fine after they leave. The session continued, but nobody could focus. They kept glancing at the empty human section, expecting to see familiar faces that were no longer there. The chamber felt larger somehow, their voices echoing differently in the space. Within hours, the first reports began arriving. Human-operated facilities across the galaxy had shut down in perfect order. Every system properly closed, every file carefully archived, every handover document neatly prepared, and filed in local databases. Not a single piece of equipment was damaged. Not one critical system was left running unsupervised. The humans had planned this. They had spent months, maybe years, preparing for this moment. While the Council plotted to limit their expansion, the humans had quietly organized their complete withdrawal from galactic society. Communication networks the humans had helped design kept working, but nobody noticed the subtle changes yet. Manufacturing plants that humans had optimized continued production, but efficiency would gradually decline. Medical facilities that relied on human research would keep treating patients until their supplies ran low. By evening, long-range sensors confirmed what many suspected. The human fleet had departed their homeworld. All colonies had been evacuated. Millions of humans, their ships, their technology, and their knowledge had simply vanished into the vast emptiness of space. They had left quietly, without anger or revenge. They had fulfilled every obligation, completed every contract, and prepared detailed instructions for their replacements. Then they had walked away from the only galactic civilization they had ever known. The Galactic Council had gotten exactly what they wanted, a galaxy without troublesome humans asking difficult questions about fairness and equality. They would soon discover the true cost of their victory. 6 months had passed since the humans left, and Trade Minister Qualthon stood nervously in front of the emergency council session. His environmental suit made soft beeping sounds as his stress levels rose. The holographic display behind him showed numbers that made every council member uncomfortable. Manufacturing output has dropped 37% across all sectors, he announced, his voice shaking through the suit speakers. At first, we thought it was temporary. We were wrong. The council chamber buzzed with worried whispers. Vexthar's crystal skin had turned a dull orange color, which meant he was confused and angry at the same time. Explain this, Minister. Our factories are still running. Our workers are still working. How can production be down? Qualthon touched his control panel, and the display changed to show a detailed breakdown. The problem is quality, Chairman. The Corathian shipyards are producing vessels, but 40% fail safety inspections. The Xerian electronics factories are making components, but they break down within weeks instead of lasting for years. From her seat in the third ring, Counselor Zephyrian raised one of her purple tentacles. I don't understand. We've been building ships and electronics for thousands of years. Why are we suddenly having problems? Because of Engineer Kim, Qualthon said quietly, and Specialist Lee, and dozens of other humans who work quietly in our factories. They didn't just follow our procedures, they improved them. They made small changes, tiny adjustments that we never noticed. When they left, they took all those improvements with them. The truth was slowly becoming clear, and it was more disturbing than anyone had imagined. For 2 centuries, humans have been working alongside alien species throughout the galaxy. They have been helpful, eager to learn, and always ready to suggest better ways of doing things. The other species had thought the humans were just being pushy and annoying. They had been wrong. Dr. Kethmiron activated her speaking device. I've been reviewing medical records from the past 6 months. Something troubling has emerged. The plague of silence has returned to 17 worlds. A cold silence fell over the chamber. The plague of silence was an old enemy, a disease that had killed millions across different species for centuries. But it had been under control for over 100 years. Everyone assumed their medical technology had simply gotten better. How is that possible? Demanded Defense Coordinator HFY Cicera, her 4 red arms gesturing aggressively. We conquered that plague generations ago. No, we didn't, Dr. Kevmeron replied, her voice heavy with regret. Dr. Hahn did, and her research team. I found their files buried in the medical archives. For the past 150 years, humans have been secretly adding preventative compounds to our food supplies, water systems, and even the air recycling plants on space stations. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly found themselves united in disbelief. They were medicating us without our knowledge. Vexthar's crystal skin flashed bright red with anger. They were protecting us, Dr. Kethmeron corrected firmly. The compounds were completely harmless to all known species. They simply prevented the plague from taking hold. Dr. Hahn's team spent decades perfecting the formula and finding ways to distribute it quietly. They never asked for credit or payment. They just solved the problem and moved on. Trade Minister Qualphon called up more data. It's not just medicine and manufacturing. Food production is down 18%. The synthetic coffee industry has completely collapsed. Entertainment networks are reporting a 60% drop in viewership. Even our transportation systems are running slower than before. How is that possible? Tyann of the Celestial Dominion asked, her golden scales darkening with worry. Because humans were involved in everything, Qualphon explained. Agricultural consultant Zhang spent 30 years developing better crop rotation techniques. She shared them with farmers across 100 worlds. Coffee specialist O created the synthetic blends that most of the galaxy enjoyed. Entertainment producer CO helped develop the music and stories that billions of beings loved. The list kept growing as reports came in from across the galaxy. Water purification systems were working less efficiently without engineer songs maintenance protocols. Atmospheric processors on marginal worlds were starting to fail without technician limbs modifications. Mining operations were extracting less or without geologist Nam's geological surveys. They were everywhere, whispered Counselor Zephyrian, her tentacles trembling. In every industry, every system, every part of our civilization. We thought they were just workers, just helpful assistants. But they were the foundation holding everything together. Defense Coordinator THY Cicera stood up, her red skin flushed darker with embarrassment. Our early warning systems have been failing across 7 sectors. I always assumed our own people maintained them. But the maintenance logs show human technicians Choi and Kim were responsible for the most critical repairs. They trained our staff, but apparently not well enough. The reports continue for hours. Communication satellites were drifting out of position without human navigators. Research projects were stalling without human scientists. Even the coffee shops and entertainment centers throughout the galaxy were closing because they couldn't replicate the human touch that had made them special. The galaxy was discovering a terrible truth. For 2 centuries, while they had been congratulating themselves on their superior civilization, humans had been quietly making everything work better. They had shared their knowledge freely, solved problems without being asked, and improved systems without taking credit. Now they were gone, and the cracks were starting to show. 2 years after the humans disappeared, Dr. Ketmaron stood before the Galactic Council with the weight of 12 million deaths on her shoulders. Her usually steady voice cracked as she delivered the report that everyone had been dreading. The plague of silence has now reached 63 worlds, she announced, her medical scanner showing grim statistics. We have lost 12 million beings across 17 different species. The death rate is increasing every day. The council chamber, once filled with proud representatives from across the galaxy, now felt like a funeral hall. Many seats sat empty as delegates had returned home to deal with the crisis on their own worlds. Those who remained looked tired and desperate. Chairman Vexlar's crystal skin had turned a sickly gray color that stayed that way permanently now. What about the treatments we developed? The emergency medical protocols? They're not working, Dr. Kethmaron replied bluntly. We've tried everything we know. Traditional medicines, advanced therapies, even experimental treatments. Nothing stops the plague once it takes hold. Counselor Zephyrian wrapped her purple tentacles around herself like she was trying to disappear. But we defeated this disease before. Surely we can do it again. We never defeated it, Dr. Ketmaron said, her voice filled with bitter regret. I've spent the last year going through every medical archive in the galaxy. The truth is worse than we thought. She activated the holographic display, showing medical records that stretched back centuries. The plague of silence was never cured. It was prevented. Dr. Hahn and her team didn't just develop treatments. They created a prevention system so elegant that we never even knew it existed. The display showed a complex network of food additives, water treatments, and air purification systems that had been quietly protecting the galaxy for over a century. Every world, every space station, every ship had been part of an invisible shield that kept the plague from spreading. They put the preventative compounds in everything. Dr. Ketmiron continued. Our morning beverages contained trace amounts of plague-fighting chemicals. The water recycling systems on our ships were designed to filter out plague carriers. Even the air fresheners in public buildings contain compounds that kill plague spores before they could spread. Trade Minister Qualthon, his environmental suit making worried beeping sounds, raised a shaking hand. Why didn't they tell us? Why keep it secret? Because they tried to tell us, Dr. Kethmeron answered, bringing up old council records. I found Dr. Hahn's original presentation from 147 years ago. She requested permission to implement a galaxy-wide prevention program. The council rejected it. The old recording played, showing a young human woman standing in the same spot where Dr. Kethmeron now stood. Her voice was clear and confident as she explained her plan to protect every living being in the galaxy from an ancient enemy. The council called it human interference in natural biological processes. Dr. Kethmeron read from the official rejection letter. They said humans had no right to medicate other species without explicit consent for each individual treatment. Ambassador Tyen of the Celestial Dominion, her golden scales now dull with shame, whispered, "So they did it anyway." "They did it quietly," Dr. Kethmeron confirmed. Dr. Hahn and her team worked with human agricultural specialists, water engineers, and atmospheric technicians. They found ways to protect us that didn't require official approval. They saved billions of lives and never asked for credit. The recording continued, showing more rejected proposals. Human scientists had tried to share their knowledge through official channels dozens of times over the decades. Each time, the council had dismissed their ideas as unnecessary or presumptuous. So the humans had found other ways. Engineer Song's water purification improvements weren't just about taste and efficiency, Dr. Kethmeron explained. They contained plague-fighting elements. Agricultural consultant Zhang's crop rotation techniques didn't just increase yields, they eliminated plague-carrying insects. Atmospheric technician Lim's air recycling modifications didn't just save energy, they created environments where plague spores couldn't survive. Defense Coordinator HFY Cicera, her 4 red arms hanging limply at her sides, asked the question everyone was thinking. Can we recreate their system? Can we rebuild what they built? Dr. Kethmeron shook her head sadly. We've tried. The formulas they left behind are incomplete. We can make the basic compounds, but we don't understand the delivery systems. How do you secretly add medicine to the water supply of 1,000 worlds without anyone noticing? How do you modify air recycling systems across millions of ships and stations? The logistics alone are staggering. And there's another problem, she continued. The compound degrade over time. The humans have been constantly maintaining and updating their prevention network. Without their oversight, the protection slowly faded. By the time we realized what was happening, the plague had already begun spreading again. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of human contribution became clear. They hadn't just been helpful workers or annoying questioners of authority. They had been the invisible guardians of galactic civilization, protecting everyone from threats that most species have forgotten even existed. How many more are there? Vexthar asked quietly. How many other disasters are waiting for us because the humans aren't here to prevent them? Dr. Kethmeron's answer sent chills through every being in the chamber. We don't know. We're only discovering their contributions after the systems fail. There could be dozens of other protection networks that we don't even know about yet. We might not find out about them until it's too late. The Galactic Council had wanted to limit human expansion and put them in their place. Instead, they had driven away the species that had been quietly keeping them all alive. Captain Zorth had been exploring the galaxy for 300 years, but he had never seen his crew look so nervous. The hegemony scout ship Silent Hunter drifted slowly toward the abandoned monitoring station at the edge of the Kepler void, where space itself seemed to end and endless darkness began. "Are you sure this is where the signal came from?" asked Navigator Telmos. Her 6 eyes focused on the scanner readings. The old monitoring station looked dead, just floating metal in the emptiness between star systems. "The human identification beacon is still broadcasting," Zor confirmed, though his voice carried doubt. "Weak signal, but it's definitely there. This is the first trace of humans we found in 8 months of searching." The Galactic Council had sent dozens of scout ships to every corner of known space, looking for any sign of where the humans had gone. Some species thought they had destroyed themselves in shame after leaving the council. Others believed they had hidden on some remote world, waiting for an apology that would never come. Captain Zorith knew better. In his long career, he had learned that humans were full of surprises. They rarely did what other species expected. The docking procedure took longer than usual because the station's automated systems were still working perfectly. As the airlock sealed and atmosphere readings showed safe levels, Zor felt a strange mixture of hope and dread. "Captain," called out Engineer Veltar from his position at the scanning console. "These readings don't make sense. The station should be dead after 2 years without maintenance, but everything is running like it was serviced yesterday." The team moved carefully through the station's corridors, emergency lights casting strange shadows on the walls. The air smelled clean and fresh, impossible for an abandoned facility. Their footsteps echoed in the metal hallways as they made their way to the control center. What they found there stopped them in their tracks. The main computer system was not only running, but actively maintaining detailed logs of everything that had happened since the humans left. Screens showed status reports from systems across the galaxy, maintenance schedules for equipment the humans no longer operated, and training protocols for procedures they would never teach again. "This is incredible," whispered communications specialist Dorwin as she accessed the station's databases. "They didn't just abandon this place. They prepared it for someone else to take over." The computer files were organized with impossible precision. Every system the humans had ever operated had detailed instruction manuals written in 17 different galactic languages, step-by-step procedures for maintaining equipment, emergency protocols for system failures, and training programs that could teach anyone how to do jobs that had taken humans decades to master. Engineer Veltar found technical specifications that made his head spin. "Captain, look at this." They left complete blueprints for every modification they ever made to our systems. The improvements to the Korathian shipyards, the water purification upgrades, even the agricultural techniques. Everything is documented in perfect detail. But it was communications Officer Nam's personal logs that revealed the real story. The files showed months of careful preparation, with teams of humans working around the clock to ensure their departure wouldn't destroy galactic civilization. "Listen to this," Dorwin said, playing one of the recordings. Nam's voice filled the control room, calm and professional as always. "Final systems check complete. All documentation has been verified and uploaded to local databases. Backup copies distributed to 17 monitoring stations. If anyone comes looking for us, they'll find everything they need to keep things running." The recording continued with a list of preparations that seemed impossible for any species to complete. The humans had not only documented their own work, but had also analyzed and recorded the functions of systems they had never officially controlled. "They knew," Captain Zora said quietly. "They knew we would need their help eventually, and they prepared for it." More discoveries followed as the team explored deeper into the station. Storage rooms contained carefully preserved samples of the compounds Dr. Hahn had used to prevent the plague of silence. Laboratory equipment sat ready for use, with detailed instructions for creating the life-saving medicines that the galaxy desperately needed. "Captain, Navigator Tel Moss called from the observation deck. You need to see this." Outside the station's main window, barely visible against the darkness of space, something massive moved between the distant stars. Long-range sensors showed energy signatures unlike anything in galactic records, structures so large they made planets look like tiny rocks. "What are we looking at?" Zorith asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Ring habitats," Telmos replied, her voice filled with awe. "Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, each one larger than most moons. They're arranged around an artificial star that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of physics." The scout ship's most powerful telescopes revealed details that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about engineering. The ring structures rotated slowly, their surfaces covered with cities, forests, and oceans. Ships moved between them like tiny insects, following traffic patterns that suggested a population in the millions. They didn't run away, Zorith realized. They built themselves a new home, out here in the void where no one would think to look for them. The humans hadn't fled in defeat or anger. They had used their departure as an opportunity to create something magnificent, far beyond what any species in the galaxy had ever imagined possible. They had left the council chambers quietly, but they had been building wonders among the stars. 3 years to the day after the humans had walked out of the council chambers, the communication system in the Galactic Council building came alive with an incoming transmission. Every screen, every speaker, every communication device across the galaxy simultaneously received the same signal. Chairman Vexar was in his private office, reviewing the latest death reports from the plague, when Ambassador Park's familiar voice filled the room. His crystal skin immediately shifted to a deep blue color of shock and hope. To our former colleagues in the Galactic Council, Park's voice was exactly as he remembered, calm, professional, and strangely warm. We have been watching your struggles from our new home, and we understand the difficulties our departure has caused. Across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen. In the council chambers, the few remaining delegates gathered around the main communication console. On plague-stricken worlds, doctors paused in their hopeless treatments. In failing factories, workers looked up at speakers they hadn't heard working properly in months. We did not leave because we were angry or wanted revenge. Park continued. We left because we realized something important. Our presence had become a crutch for everyone, including ourselves. You were not learning to solve your own problems because we were always there to solve them for you. Dr. Kethmaran, who had been working 18-hour days trying to fight the plague, felt tears running down her face. After 3 years of struggling, the humans' voices sounded like salvation. But we also understand that people are dying. Park's voice grew softer, more personal. We know that our departure has caused suffering we never intended. Dr. Han's medical team, Engineer Kim's industrial group, and agricultural specialist Jang's food production unit have all prepared complete information packages for you. The transmission paused, and suddenly data began flooding into every computer system across the galaxy. Medical formulas appeared in hospital databases. Engineering specifications materialized in factory computers. Agricultural guides downloaded into farming networks on 1,000 worlds. Trade Minister Qualthon watched in amazement as his environmental suit systems registered the incoming technical data. "This is everything," he whispered to himself. "Complete blueprints, step-by-step instructions, training programs. Everything we lost when they left. This knowledge is freely given." Park's voice resumed. "No payment required, no treaties to sign, no favors to return. It is our final gift to the civilization we once called home." In medical facilities across the galaxy, doctors immediately began preparing the plague-fighting compounds using Dr. Han's detailed formulas. The recipes were so precise that even species who had never worked with human medicine before could follow them perfectly. "But we asked for something in return," Park continued, and the galaxy held its breath. "We ask that you use this opportunity to build something better than what existed before. Create a council that truly represents all its members, not just the most powerful ones. Develop systems that encourage cooperation instead of domination." Counselor Zephyrian, her purple tentacles wrapped around her ceremonial staff, realized she was crying. The humans weren't asking for anything for themselves. Even now, even after everything, they were thinking about making life better for everyone else. Learn to solve your own problems. Park's voice grew stronger. Build your own solutions. Become the civilization you were always capable of being. Do this so that you never again depend on any single species for your survival. The transmission quality began to change, as if the signal was coming from very far away. Background readings showed the source was somewhere beyond a galaxy's edge, in the vast emptiness between star systems. "We will not be returning to Council space," Park announced. "Our path lies among the stars beyond your reach now. We have found something wonderful out here in the darkness. The freedom to explore, to build, to become something we could never be while we were taking care of everyone else's problems." Defense Coordinator THY Zesera, her 4 red arms trembling, realized the humans had achieved something her warrior species had always dreamed of: complete independence. They had built their own civilization from nothing, beholden to no one. "But we wish you well." Park's voice was fading as the signal weakened. "We hope that someday, when you become who you were meant to be, our paths might cross again. not as protectors and protected, not as problem solvers and problem havers, but as true equals exploring the universe together. The transmission ended with a soft click, leaving the galaxy in profound silence. Within hours, the plague began retreating on world after world as the new treatments took effect. Factory production improved as human design processes came back online. Food shortages ended as agricultural techniques were properly implemented again. But the real change happened in the council chambers. For the first time in galactic history, every species had an equal vote. The powerful elder races gave up their special privileges. New systems encouraged cooperation and shared problem-solving instead of dominance and dependency. Chairman Vexar, his crystal skin now showing the bright colors of hope and determination, called for the historic vote. All in favor of the Great Reform? The decision was unanimous. The humans had departed quietly, leaving behind not just solutions to immediate problems, but a challenge to become better. The galaxy accepted that challenge, and in learning to stand on its own, discovered it had always possessed the strength to thrive. Far beyond the galaxy's edge, among the ring habitats floating in the void, the humans continued their quiet work among the stars. They had given the galaxy its greatest gift, the chance to grow up,